The following interview segment was taken from Talking Wealth on FLIXX.net. That's FLIXX.net. Talking Wealth is brought to you by Wealth Within and presented by Dale Gillham and Janine Cox. To watch the full episode, go to FLIXX.net, click on the On Demand section, and then click on Talking Wealth under the Finance section. Or for more information, visit wealthwithin.com.au.
Chris Collingwood, welcome back to Talking Wealth. How are you today?
Oh, look, really good, Janine, and it's great to be back here again.
Look, I must admit, in the recent series of chats that we've had, you've not only enlightened us, but you've been so helpful in many ways for all of our viewers. And in the past 3 interviews, we've chatted about creating desirable futures, also managing anxiety, and then we've got into managing self-performance, which was excellent. So today I believe that we're going to get into leading others, which is the next step. As leading others, you're assisting them with managing their self-performance. And indeed, this also works hand in hand with creating desirable futures for ourselves, our business and for others. And I believe that you have a model called the Engage model that you would like to introduce to us. Promotion to management roles typically are based on technical skills, soft skills, and preparing before the meeting to get others' attention. And there's a whole raft of important criteria, isn't there, involved in that?
Yeah, there certainly is. I mean, you want to have the best possible person for the role, and sometimes people select staff based on qualifications and technical skills, but what they don't pay enough attention to is the people skills, the attitude the person has, the type of mindset the potential employee has. I'd much rather have someone who may not be as qualified as somebody else if they have the right attitude, and I know what I'm looking for in terms of employees. I like people who are self-motivated, what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. So they're self-reliant. They are proactive in their role and in terms of what they do. They're far more useful people than somebody who might be highly qualified, but they've been, how do I put it, enculturated in past companies with the wrong sort of culture for work.
I know a lot of people get promoted into jobs because, or they get offered roles because of their full qualifications. And I know when I'm looking at resumes, and you're seeing all these, courses people have done on their qualifications, and then when you start to talk to the person, quite often they don't match their qualifications or what your perception of that is. And so to me, half the time with the resumes, I almost take them with a grain of salt until I get to physically meet somebody. And it's more those, how do you determine, those soft skills that we talk a bit about, is much more important.
Well, that's right. And so it's that usual thing. People, how does a person become a manager for the first time, typically in an Australian company? Well, they're the best. They're technically the best person in the role, and so they go, "Oh yeah, well let's make Bob or Mary, let's make them a manager." And there we are. They've been blessed. They're now a manager, but they may not have any people skills. One of my favourite stories of I interviewed. I did some market research for a mate of mine, and I interviewed some people that were his target market. He runs a recruitment business. And one of the guys I interviewed had recently he was a software engineer, and he had been promoted to his first management role. Now, the truth of the matter was he was absolutely terrified of people. He loved software. And by the way, I said to him, "What do you love about software?" And he says, "Well, when you're writing code, you're creating something out of nothing." It was like a mystical experience.
So passionate about it.
Oh, he just loved it, and he was a phenomenal software engineer. He started learning to code at the age of 7.
Wow.
One of the most important memories was when Dad took him into the city and he bought his first book on coding. And they went, "Hey, he's the best in the role. Hey, let's make him a manager."
It's almost like putting an animal in a cage. That's it's just a waste, really, isn't it? Just not putting the right peg in the right hole.
Well, I ended up doing some work with them. So what we did, I actually taught some of the key ideas that we use, some of the key skills that we cover in the Engage program. So I taught them, basically the big frame for him as a software engineer is think about people as like code for people. So you've got human software in terms of how people behave socially. Now, it's not as logical. I says it's not the same as code, as software, but there is a code in terms of human behavior. And then basically the key things I taught them was how to be very clear about the outcomes you had before meeting with a person, and how to establish a rapport, which is needed for social interactions to get the person's attention, and then how to frame the whatever the task was for the other person, how to frame it and how to read the other person. And there's some other things too, but those are the basic ideas, and it made a big difference for him. But for him, the metaphor, we talked about kind of like human software, human code, is something you could relate to as a software engineer.
I can just imagine how passionate, he could be to inspire people in his team, because he's not just a manager. He's so passionate already about what he does, and how he would be so skilled in picking those people that could be brilliant at doing exactly what he would need them to do. So I guess he could think about, because he'd be an extension of that, they'd be an extension of himself. So it's not like he's missing out on doing those projects, but he's now being able to give the gift of what he loved to other people and really put that passion through the whole team. I just think that, and with those skills that you gave him, he could be absolutely brilliant at both.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, these skills, they're not difficult to learn. They're fairly straightforward. It's just that it's important that a person is exposed to it and knows and learns that there's a way to go about your interactions with other people, whether you're managing up, managing down, or managing sideways. There are social conventions. You need to have a rapport. That is, you need to catch both their conscious and unconscious attention. You've got to be able to hold their attention, and you need to be able to frame things in a way that's going to be motivating for the person. So a fair bit of the work is really preparation before you even meet the other person. So you need to know what your outcomes are. What's the outcome? What are we doing the outcome for? What's the bigger picture that the outcome's part of? What we call the intention. What are the likely consequences if we succeed in having this achieved? Okay, now I'm ready to meet. So I get together with the person I'm managing, or it could be managing up. I get together with my boss. I know my outcome, and I simply use the intention for the outcome to frame the whole thing. I'll give you an example, customer service. So let's say we're going to change a procedure and how we work with customers. I'm going to talk to a person that actually connects with customers on a daily basis. My outcome is for them to change, to use the new process in terms of how they work with customers. The intention for doing that is to improve the customer experience, which happens to be one of the values of the organisation. So that's my intention, is to make sure we support that value. So I get together with the other person, I establish rapport, I say, by the way, as you realise, the quality of our customers' experience is paramount for our organisation. It's one of our core values. Now, with that in mind, we have designed a new process that we want you to do in terms of your interactions with customers that will support that particular value. Can I take you through that now?
Lovely.
And of course, I'm going to get a yes to that.
I just want to, I'm really enjoying what you're talking about, and I know, having had sales teams so often, and I know that good salespeople most often don't make good sales managers. They're completely different skill sets in terms of that. But if I was thinking at it from a term while I was listening, I'm thinking, well, if I wanted to be a manager in whatever role I'm in at the moment, I wanted to manage that, what would I have to personally do to be able to get the skills to actually be the manager? And what type of things should I learn, and how should I go about all that?
Well, it's going to sound like an advertisement, but our Engage program covers all the key skills. So we put together the set of skills that's necessary for managers in terms of being able, the soft skills that they require for current managers or new managers for being able to manage at work, whether it's managing up, down or sideways. And the critical skills are preparation, how to establish rapport, how to get and hold the other person's attention, framing, how do you frame requests, how do you get clarification from the other. We've got a couple of very simple questions we use, actually based on grammar, but with a couple of questions for clarification. How do you get evidence that the other person really does understand the task or the request that you're making? So just a person saying, I understand, is not good enough.
Well, I think part of it, though, is the person who's actually wanting to be that manager has to have changed his mind map in terms of, because when you're the worker, your focus is here. It's narrow, right? So when you step back as the manager, all of a sudden it's got to become bigger, but you've got to be able to see that map in your mind first. And with the training that you do, like, it's about having these three-dimensional thinking, and because the creative, the guy who you were talking about earlier, he's up here. A lot of the time. So then you've got to bring him down into that task part and the interaction with people and how that's all going to work. So, and there's another level, isn't there, with it in terms of managing that day-to-day stuff as well. But, I think that the mapping part of it and being able to see it, which is what the training, the NLP stuff does brilliantly, that I think is so powerful for people who are thinking, you sort of think the salespeople are generally not good managers, but like, as you said before, how do you get those skill sets in there? It's just a shift, isn't it, in terms of what you're focusing on? Absolutely.
And you'll find, interestingly, this software engineer, he became a very good manager. And one of the skills he used in software turned out to be something that was ideal for a management role. So one of the things we found that top software engineers do, they've got the big picture in terms of the outcomes and intentions for the particular project. They go down into detail writing the code, but then they test it back up to the big picture. So they've got both the big picture, and then they go into the detail and they test it back up. That's what really good software engineers do. The average ones get lost in the detail. And of course, one of the key, as you were saying, Janine, one of the key attributes of leaders, the further up you go in the organisation, the person has to be able to connect whatever the projects are back to the big picture. They've got to be able to go do the same thing a highly skilled software engineer does, actually. And they've got to be able to, we call it chunking up, big picture. And of course, if you're a senior leader, you're dealing with a lot less detail, but you've got to have an overview of all the different parts of the organisation and what the projects and outcomes for those projects are. Some of the best,
like years ago, these general managers that I met that were so good at delivering this at the crew level. So you've got your workers at the bottom, the middle management, and then them. There's one guy I remember, he was absolutely brilliant at this. So he would be constantly implanting little seeds in all of the minds of the people at the bottom about what they needed to focus on, and he lifted them up. So then they were all about what was happening in the big picture of the company, not just the day-to-day operation of the machine. Yeah, which was brilliant.
And that's part of the framing. So when you have the interaction, you're saying you've got the intentions and you use the intentions. That's the big picture to frame the task.
Yeah.
It reminds me, my partner and I, we did what's called a modelling project. We were invited to capture the key management skills of a general manager of an Australian multinational. And this man hadn't had any NLP training. He was absolutely brilliant. He was actually trained as an engineer, which, by the way, he'd been taught how to think as an engineer. That's an interesting thing about some engineers. It's good training. And he'd been a troubleshooter in the company, has solved the unsolvable problems. And so they made him general manager. And so his dream was to take his division and make it the best performing, most profitable division of the entire corporation, which, by the way, he did. And he had the most wonderful people skills that he had somehow acquired in his career. And he had an absolutely superb ability to pick the right people for a team. And he was going for soft skills as well as technical competence. He wanted to make sure people had the people skills as well. And one of the things he said to me, which I've always remembered, is that it's all about making sure that the people who report to him have the resources required to achieve whatever the tasks are, the outcomes are. And he believed that how he had got into a top position was he was pushed. He was pushed up by the people who reported to him. Their performance pushed him up through the organisation. Wow. So he focused on managing people and managing their performance. Yep. And he had a couple of other things, interesting things he did. I'll share this. He focused on the what, the outcomes and intentions, and he framed that. So the precise thing we cover in the Engage program, he framed that with the people who work for him. Their job was to focus on the how. So they focused on the process. He let them get on with the job, which is how to achieve the outcome. His attention was on the outcomes and the intentions, the what. They focused on the how. And so he didn't micromanage.
That's fantastic.
And they loved him. I worked with a number, because after that project, we were invited to do some more work with him. And we worked with the next level of managers who reported to him, and they would walk over broken glass for that man. Yeah. Wow. Incredible leader.
God, well,
yeah,
Chris.
I think part of that is in him. Like, it's part of the purpose of the man. But I honestly believe that the people that he comes in contact with along his journey, and even the parents, can have a massive impact on that soul development, if you know what I mean. Like
absolutely.
Just the openness, the giving of that. Because some people are they'll close up, and that they miss out on what they could be because they close up because of some things that have happened in their life. But then the people that open up like a flower, if you like, they shine like that.
Oh, and he was he was a really, he was just a very nice human being. He was a lovely person and very, very good with the people side of things. And I'm not surprised that he turned his division into the top performing division for the corporation. Yep.
So is that the trick, matey? So talk to Chris Collingwood and you become the top performing division of your company. So.
Well, yeah, you've got to put the work in. You got to, you take what we teach, and you've got to apply it. But yes.
Well, we've just run out of time again, mate. So it's again a very, very interesting time chatting with you, and obviously the program that you're running and that you've discussed throughout this interview. I think it's going to be great if somebody aspires to be a manager. I think I would suggest they go and do your course on that. Before you go, can you tell people how to actually find the course and how they find out more about you?
Okay, so the best place is our main website, nlp.edu.au. So that's NLP edu for education, AU for Australia. The program's called the Engage program. So we have that program. It's a remote learning program.
So the whole thing,
the whole thing can be done online. This is something we used to teach over a one-day program inside organisations. And what we've done, we've decided to have it as a remote learning program and something that's available to anybody who wants to develop their people skills and develop their leadership, develop themselves as a leader. So rather than paying the usual $4,000 a day, inside a corporation and all this sort of stuff, and people can do it for about $150, I think it is.
Cool. And, so they should engage with your Engage program.
I think they should, absolutely.
Chris, again, you've been fantastic once again, and I look forward to our next chat. You take care, buddy.
Okay, thank you both.
Bye
Cheers.
for now.
Thank you.
For more information on our guest in today's episode, visit the link on screen right now. For more Talking Wealth, visit FLIXX.net, click on the On Demand section, and then click on Talking Wealth under the Finance section. That's FLIXX.net. flixx.net or visit wealthwithin.com.au, where we have hundreds of informational videos, live shows and Talking Wealth podcasts. Talking Wealth was voted number 3 in stock market podcasts globally in 2018 by FeedSpot. For more information on our courses, visit wealthwithin.com.au.